Welcome, everyone. This is Planet Needles, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at lasers and LOTRO, and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Senswinda
Hello.
and Krister.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. And this week's big news is that we have a drop from Bower, the first beta for update 33.2, which seems to be all about changes. Class changes specifically.
One class in particular stands out of changes.
Yes, we have one, but there are a few other tweaks also relating to classes. But let's begin with class changes in general. Then we'll go into the class that is being exemplified by this entire update. So let's begin. First of all, Bjorning Brutal Retribution Armor sets now list and use a 4-item set bonus. All right. The Brawler trait Trail Food Boost now works with Feast of Honor and Superior Feast of Honorian. Brawlers will now gain the correct battle rank modifiers when entering into the Intermores. Right, I guess that's good. Gave Brawler appropriate loot drops for both the library and School of Thumb-Miridane.
I wonder what they were getting.
I have absolutely no idea. Captain and Warden Stout X classes can now open Stout X Newbie Heirloom Pack. Now that one is a rather weird one when you consider that prior to this update, such a combination was impossible because the next item is, during character creation, Dwarf and Stout X characters can now choose to be captains or wardens. Hence, the item before that now makes a little bit more sense, except for the fact that I would say outside of the Palantir server, no one's played those classes before this week.
Right.
And the Elf and High Elf characters can now choose the Burglar class. Hobbit characters can now choose the Champion and Lore Master classes. And men characters can now choose the Runekeeper classes. And that means Race of Man can select any of the classes now. There aren't any of them close to them. I am, of course, excluding the Bjornings, but just sort of a subset of the Race of Man anyway. Not much of a difference on that matter. So therefore, we have a lot more classes now that each race can be. So are there any combinations that anyone is looking especially forward to doing?
Well, the one that confuses me, okay, because I feel like it changes lore just enough, would be an Elven Burglar. Because then, what would be the point of going out to the crappy Shire and trying to find a grubby little hobbit to be a thief when you could go and tell Elrond, you're coming with me and you're stealing that?
I mean, there's kind of bad history between the elves and the dwarves, though. If I were a dwarf, I'd probably trust a hobbit more.
Okay, fine. Yes. So, I guess in terms... I guess the elves would be the sophisticated, like, Ocean's 11 type burglars, as opposed to the scum that you typically see in Middle Earth.
Besides, would you really have wanted an elf to discover the One Ring?
I guess it would depend on the elf, right? I mean, if it was like Elrond, maybe. I think Elrond could resist the ring, couldn't he?
I don't know for how long if he actually had it in his possession, though. I don't know if I want to know for how long.
Well, maybe he just carries a series of unconscious hobbits in a sack and just puts the ring on them and then carries it. Or wait, maybe I'm overthinking this.
It sounds like you are.
I'm looking forward to making a hobbit champion, just for the record.
A hobbit champion?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
Can you dual wield frying pans? Because that would just be brilliant.
I bet you can. I'm going to try anyway.
Try to dual wield I don't know. Are frying pans listed as main hand or
It will depend if
main?
they're listed as a two-handed or one-handed, probably, or main hand.
Yeah,
I
because like
guess we'll have to
sparklers, you
see.
can hold.
But sparklers you can dual wield, so maybe.
Yeah, you can hold them in two hands. So
Well, yeah. Well, sparklers are something that is
You can also
rather
dual wield
obvious.
pretzels.
oh, that sounds good.
Hmm.
But you wouldn't want to dual wield pretzels. You want to wield a pretzel into beer.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. You,
Yeah, I
let's
just think it's interesting, kind of the combos like this Stout X Captain sounds interesting to me. I guess so.
Well, let's see. Heavy cast iron frying pan, one-handed implement. It doesn't say anything about main hand.
See, that sounds like you can do it with that.
So dual wielding frying pans, but as others have noted, you would say that you'll most likely. Now, one person said a beer is the most likely thing you want to wield it with. I would think that a spatula would be the most likely thing that you would wield it with.
Oh, with the yeah,
With the frying pan, yes.
with the frying pan. Oh yeah,
Yeah, I can see that. Or maybe one of the little forks. I still, yeah. I'd probably go with dual frying pans, though. Just
yeah, because
for
then you
their
can like
whacking
George
power.
Foreman kind of grill it, where you put the beef in one pan and you put the other pan on top of it, and suddenly it's super cooked from all sides.
Kind of like a Dutch oven when you're not using it to bang enemies over the head.
Oh, and then they can make those like Swedish pancakes. Oh. Did we just go on? Are we on a tangent right now?
Yes.
I think
I'm
we
waiting
have
for
gone
us to
quite-
get pulled back on track.
Yes, you have realized that. Now, we're talking about potential combinations. All right, so since when the vote is for a Hobbit champion, what about you, Krister?
I have to admit, I guess I would, if I was going to try something, maybe the Stout X Captain would be of interest to me. So.
Oh, Stout X Captain? Okay. And then I think it's probably, people have figured out by now that I'll probably try a Hobbit Lore Master.
That does sound like a fun combination. I wish it came with saddles for the animals, the pets, though.
Saddles for the pets.
Yeah, can you imagine, like, you ride up to battle on a bog guardian, dismount, and start fighting? It'd be
Yeah,
great.
I suppose so, especially when you consider how big the Bog Guardians look tall next to a human character. Next to a Hobbit, they'll be even bigger. And I did have a first-hand look on Bulwer at the relative size of a Hobbit to a Lore Master's bear. And let us just say the bear was a lot bigger than I was.
See? You could ride a bear into combat and just dismount and start fighting. It would be awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Though I did go by a trainer and buy one of those talismans for the polar bear cub for 25 mithril.
It's so much fun to do that on Bulwer.
Yes, you can do it with a Bulwer without worrying about having used up your mithril coins. That's true. The question is, am I going to do that on the live servers? But it
Where
looks like
Probably you can buy one on the auction house using in-game money on the live servers.
well, that's another possibility is to see if anyone's selling it on. You're right. Check the auction house first, then worry about 25 mithril for
And maybe ask your
Yeah.
friends, because I think I've got like a bunch of recipes for it somewhere. I don't know which server though.
Well, yeah, that's the trick is which server we do. I will probably create one on probably I suspect I'll have 3 different servers where I'm going to have one on. And one of them is probably going to be Landy. So the question is whether or not you have one with the recipe on Landy.
That'd be the most likely. I'll check later.
Okay, we can check later on that and see whether or not that will be nice. Because right now, the first pet you get is your bear, which is big and burly. The second one I can think about getting is the raven, which calls too much. Then the third one I could probably, since I'll probably be in blue line, will probably be the bog guardian, which is humongously tall. Which means I think it's about 35 or 40 before you get the lynx, which is the most discreet of all the pets. We'll see in time. Now let's then head on to some other things. But the burglars will now start the game with 2 daggers equipped.
Yay!
All right.
That's
Actually,
Some of your
that didn't.
skills don't work if you don't have 2 weapons
Yeah,
as a
there is
burglar.
that.
That will be very helpful to have 2 immediately.
Well, I did notice that when I started with testing the Lore Master, that the weapon I had on entering the game was better than the one you fish out of that backpack during the tutorial.
You know, I noticed that on a hunter on the live servers
Okay,
last
so
week.
that's been around.
So
Okay, so that's been a
that's
while.
not super new, I don't think. It's just been a
Oh.
long time since I've done the intro to notice that.
All right. Yeah, so it's been a while since I've paid attention to it, I guess. Then captains will now start the game with a 2-handed sword.
fancy.
And wardens now start the game with a javelin equipped. I would presume that's in addition to the spear that they've always had equipped.
Hopefully it didn't just change it for javelin, but I guess we'll have to make a warden to find out.
Yes. Otherwise, I'll have to fish a spear out of the backpack and have to make do with that. And that's it for the general changes. So let's then head into the minstrel. And this is... I'm not going to... Let's just say it's long enough that I am not going to say every single one of the changes here, because that will probably take us a couple of hours to
Thanks,
go through.
Pineleaf.
Now, we might go through them all when it goes live. So that's the other reason I don't
That
feel
would
like going
make
through this
sense.
whole
Oh,
thing
thanks,
twice.
Pineleaf.
Yes. All right. And first of all, they do have a link to where you could give some feedback. In fact, I also put a link to that into the... Actually, yeah, I also gave the link into the show notes that was talking about this, where they talk about the responses to it. So I think their link is to the feedback thread, and the link that I have is to on Mac Mahal's response to some of the feedback. Because let's just say that some of the feedback is controversial, some would say.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
that.
there's some big changes.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I think the main thing from our actual minstrels were, what is there some end game in play here? Why are you guys doing this? And these changes don't. They feel like it effectively kills the yellow line mini.
Yes. Yes. Let's talk about the yellow line mini, or the no longer would be inexistent because minstrels will no longer be able to specialize in protector of song trait line, meaning yellow line. Because yellow line can no longer be chosen as a specialization, yellow trait costs have been adjusted. In general, yellow trait lines will cost 1 point, while skill granting traits will cost 2 and significant traits will cost 3. In other words, the yellow line is going to become similar to the yellow line in the brawler, in that it's something that will be open up to both other lines to draw from, instead of being a line in its own right in there. And note, in case you missed this above, upon logging into Borrower with a copied character, that's to do with the copy thing, is that you may have a yellow line in that case, in which case you would have to respecialize it in order to be able to do anything with it. I think that they will reset the trees when the change goes live, because I think that's what they usually do when they have something like this, so that the player doesn't have to manually go through the process and pay funds in order to get this thing here. Of course, most likely what's going to happen is someone's going to go into a battle anxious to see how the minstrel now goes and won't have all their trait trees reset and not realize it.
I've done that before on other classes. It's painful.
Yes.
You should start to realize it pretty quick, though.
Oh, you do, but then you're in combat and you can't make changes while you're in combat.
Oh, no. Oh, I thought you were going to say that you were going to be, at that time, you'll be in the res circle.
Well, okay, you might not notice until you're in the res circle. You might be able to run away and get through a door or something, depending on where you are in the world. But
yeah, possibility.
I'm sure he'll appreciate it. I tend to have the most trouble, though, a few months after the patch, when I log into a character that I haven't played for a while, but don't remember when I last played,
Yes, I do recall things like that in the past also. And the first of the items that they wish to talk about here is Call to Greatness and Song of Aid, where Call to Greatness was reworked to Call to Greatness significantly. It now has a 7-minute cooldown and resets one key class cooldown per trait tree for every fellowship or raid member that's within 25 meters. So essentially, it is a reset cooldown skill, which I suspect that means a minstrel will, if you're in a raid, will announce that they plan to hit that thing at a certain point. So if you want to use your trait, this is the time to use it.
Well, of course, from a captain perspective, red captain, we have curiosity about, does this bring back the option that we used to have, where if Cappy hits Earthbreakers, nowadays you have basically a period of time where you cannot recast Oathbreakers. But we used to be able to chain it, so you'd have, if you had 2 red Cappies, you'd have them just follow one right after the other with Oathies. But we're curious if that reset, that minstrel reset, actually resets the timer for the Oathies as well, so you can go back to, the Cappy can hit Oathies, the minstrel can hit that skill, they can hit Oathies again, because that'd at least be a positive. So
that would be. We'll have to see what trait it resets probably first.
Yeah.
Because it might reset a trait that we're like, we never even use these traits that it resets.
I know it, because we were talking about it. I know that Oathbreakers is one of the ones that this skill reset. So.
Okay. Are you saying that currently, that if a captain casts Oathbreakers, then no captain in the group can cast Oathbreakers for a while?
We cannot cast Oathbreakers on the same target for a period of time. And of course, I cannot remember what the time period is, but it didn't used to be that way. You could have 2 red captains chain Oathbreakers together.
Okay.
And that's what we did.
I guess I never thought of the possibility that there's a skill that the group would be barred from doing with this. I didn't know that there was ever such thing as a group cooldown, so to speak.
Well, this was what, of course, this is one of the evolutionary changes over time. This wasn't a part of the formula up to that point, and so this was another one where captains were just kind of going, what, did you guys really need to change it this way? But okay, it's not like a devastating change either.
Okay. Now, speaking of that, actually, The next item in here is actually probably something similar to what you're just talking about for the captains. That is that there's a 2-minute cooldown on receiving this effect. So that means you cannot receive a call to greatness more than once every 2 minutes, no matter how many minstrels there are.
So I'm imagining that maybe that's the same time period for the captains as well, and that is probably still in play the time period. So that makes sense. I guess they just don't want us to have that superpower moment, which I would like to point out. Every movie has the superpower moment. Everybody comes together. Here comes Legolas skating on his shield, shooting everybody. The dwarf is drinking. The hobbits are doing something. But everybody's full power. And they took it away from us.
Yes. Armor set bonuses which reduce Call to Greatness cooldown are changed from minus 45 seconds to minus 60 seconds. And armor set bonuses which gave Call to Greatness a chance to trigger its effects again now give Call to Greatness a chance to reset the cooldown of Song of Aid. Speaking of Song of Aid no longer grants unique class-specific bonuses. Now grants I don't think I've ever took advantage of Song of Aid in all my time in playing LOTRO, so probably just as well. So I'm sure that there are some minstrels out there and their groups who depend strongly on it. It now grants instead your fellowship a heal over time, as well as reduces and reflects a portion of the incoming damage. Could you imagine that a group-wide reflect?
That's kind of cool. That's interesting. Interesting to see that in play.
That's sort of your, oh no, the tank lost the control button.
Yeah, that's great. But that's interesting. I wonder what kind of aggro that would generate too. But you think about that. That's perfect. We have so many instances if the tank drops there. If you have a Runekeeper's in there, he has a do not fall on it. But it's going to take him a moment to get back up, get reoriented, and get the target under control. And so that would be a perfect moment to have that go off.
Okay, that's a good. And the HOT lasts for 10 seconds. The buff reduces and reflects 15% of damage for 10 seconds and then 5% of damage for another 15 seconds.
That's pretty cool.
Then they also made all sorts of changes related to anthems, where they changed the base buff duration is being reduced to 30 seconds. So anthems can now only last for 30 seconds, and that they all share a 25-second cooldown. And anthems no longer alter codas. Well, I was confused. I was always confused with those anyway, so I'm not too worried about it, though I'm sure there are some minstrels who are. Anthems are only usable.
The kind of annoying thing is that right now, if you're not in Yellow Line, you can still get a minute on your anthems, like, just in general. So that cut down is pretty significant. Like the time cut.
Anthems are only usable in combat, and all anthems grant a benefit to your entire fellowship or raid. And then they go into details of what each of these do, which I'm going to save that for release, just in case everything changes 5 times between now and then. And there is going to be a new trait, Invigorating Anthems. Rank 1 grants anthems a personal effect when used, formerly gained when using anthems followed by codas. And ranks 2 to 4 reduces anthem cooldowns slightly. So you can shave down the cooldown. I don't know what.
You know what I just realized, though? This might mean we can't stack our anthems. So, like, right now, you can use like as many anthems as you have available to you when you get your anthem ready to go.
Yeah.
So you might only be able to have one anthem up at a time.
Well, I think you could have more than one. Remember, there's a.
Well,
It's
if
like
they
you have
all
that
share
5-second call. You have that 5-second overlap where you'll have two of them at the same time, right?
5 seconds is nothing. I mean,
Okay.
it's enough time to die, but that's about all it is.
But I'm wondering, let's say if that rank 2 to 4 reduction in anthem cooldown is 5 seconds for each. I don't know what they mean by slightly. So let's say slightly is defined as 5 seconds. Then that means if you're at rank 4, that's 15 seconds down. So you have 15 seconds minus it. That's a 10-second cooldown. That means you could get a cycle so that you could have 3 up at a time.
Yeah,
Now,
but
of
you might have
course-
to spend all your time like focused on that if you decide to try to have 3 up.
Yes,
That
is
seems
a little
rather
bit of a
inefficient.
So I don't play a minstrel at all, and I've never played a minstrel on a raid, of course. But I think that is exactly what our minstrels do. Is they will have, I want to say 3. They try to have 3 up.
Well, yeah, right now
time.
you can get 3 up every time you get your anthems ready. You can just hit your 3 anthems and they'll be up.
I know. I was actually surprised when I found. I know that when we were running Hidden Horde, when I started figuring out this, that oh yes, I'm getting 3 up at the same time very quickly. I think in the past you had to do some finagling in getting 3 up at a time. But I know that the current state is it's very easy to get 3 anthems up at a time.
Well, yeah, because one of their recent changes to Yellow Line was to make it even easier for anthems, so they made it harder to get a couple of them. But your limitation right now is how many trait points you have to get enough anthems unlocked to have 3 up. It's not a cooldown timer. So, like at lower levels, you aren't going to be able to do it. But when you get to high levels and you've got multiple anthems unlocked, you can use them all at once when you're ready to use anthems.
Yes. And I do know, though, that when at least in a tier 1 raid, the minstrel might have extra time. If things are going well, then you might have the extra cycles in order to be able to have 3 anthems at a time. I'm assuming 10-second cooldown when you have that thing fully traded. It's when things go south and you have to concentrate on healing where you're not going to be able to maintain that.
Right.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to heal, you're probably not going to be maintaining that unless you've got things set up so that you're constantly getting an anthem ready to go. Yeah, which I guess you might. Because there is one of the ballads that does healing. But then you'd have to rely on that one for healing, which seems like it would not work very well. So I don't know.
Oh well.
Maybe you'd have to have multiple minstrels in your raid to do this. One of them focuses on anthems. Another one heals. I don't know.
Well, I sometimes wonder when I'm doing a Hidden Horde, I'm always wondering who's healing whom. I don't know what the other minstrel is doing. Are we both healing the same person, or are we?
Well, typically, in Hidden Horde specifically, that's why we'll have both healers in the tank, because truly the main recipient of heals should be our main tank, Iggy, all the time. And then I would be second on that list, because if we're doing our jobs, then the only time that you guys are going to be dealing with damage.
Hold on. I thought you were main tank.
No, I'm the off tank. So.
Oh, okay. You know that for the last 5 times we've run that raid, I've been concentrating on healing you.
No, and that's perfectly fine. But ultimately the priority, especially at the first boss, because in between the bosses doesn't really matter.
Okay.
What we're doing, but like at boss 1, Iggy shouldn't be the priority, even though you should be healing both of us. He should be the priority because he's dealing with the 2 melees while I'm dealing with the 1 range. So I'm not taking as much damage as he is during that phase. And then once the ranged guy's dead, then all of us can turn our attention to the other two. And at that point, I don't take aggro from AE. What I'll do is I'll just be hitting all of my Shield Brother skills and contributing healing to him as well. And so that usually works pretty well for us. But so that's the main thing, and that's the strategy. Why you'll see that we don't have any healers in the DPS group, we have them both in the tank group, because the tanks should be taking the majority of the damage.
All right.
Guys should just be taking either getting hit by puddles or getting knocked off the platform.
Yes. All right. Let's go into codas. Where Coda of Fury damage increased slightly, Fellowship damage buff reduced to 1%. Coda of Melody now gives 1% resistance penetration. And Coda of Resonance buff reduced to 1% incoming healing. So they're tweaking the codas a little bit. For stance-based skills, they've changed all sorts of ones on here. Melody of Battle, reflect potency is still very small, but is now based on incoming damage. And this is in Melody. It now gives 3% parry bonus, and new merge traits. Memories of Battle adds to chance to apply threat generation. Echoes of Battle now applies the debuff formerly on Timeless Echoes of Battle. Damage reduced slightly. Timeless Echoes of Battle now applies lesser version of former debuff, and damage increased slightly. Call to Orme. Now this is one that had a large number of things discussed on apparently, because this is one of the responses we had for Call to Orme. Now available in Melody stance with reduced damage. Debuff duration increased when used in Melody. Reduced debuff potency when used in Dissonance.
Boo.
And both debuffs will stack with each other and themselves, but only 2 of these debuffs will be active on a target at any time.
Just to clarify, this sounds like it'll be great for grouping potentially, but not so great for solo minstrels who are trying to level up to be grouping for things like raids.
There is a response here from the devs relating to Call of Orme. Along with the changes to Melody, yes, the Call of Orme debuff has been reduced. And we'll get to Piercing Cry later, but like Piercing Cry, this was frankly too powerful. Call of Orme is a single long-range AoE skill with a short cooldown. The fact that it essentially removed all light mitigation from a monster or raid boss simply was too powerful for one button press. And while it made bringing a YR minstrel more appealing for the current raid, there has more to do with the raid design and the relative strength of hunters than it had to do with the minstrel class being able to shine. We'd prefer if DPS minstrels were appealing for their ability to debuff, buff, and DPS as a complete package rather than the value of a single debuff.
I mean, if you're doing damage as a DPS mini, why would you be in Melody stance? I don't know. I'm not buying it.
On the same note, however, minstrels in Dissonance stance will still reduce light mitigation when they use Call of Orme, and that debuff stacks with itself twice. While the debuff is stronger in Melody, you will still get a non-trivial boost out of the debuff, whether you're in Dissonance focused or on your personal DPS, or in Melody focused a bit more on the group utility.
So what I'm hearing, though, is if you are soloing and a group of enemies is on you, and you think Call to Orme might save you, you're wrong. You'll be dead before you can stack the debuff.
The good news is you won't be around to complain.
You'll be in the red circle. Bye-bye.
Oh, wait. Couldn't you just use Piercing Cry to stun them? Oh, Wait.
No.
Because, yes, Piercing Cry will now stun on critical hits and remove corruptions in melee stance only.
Boo, boo, boo.
Oh boy.
Boo. So, my first take on this, it was to think, oh no, like that's my only corruption removal. That's not true. Pineleaf pointed out you can remove corruptions using your hit things over the head skill if you really need to remove a corruption. However, I discovered that what I really miss is the stun. Because
Oh yeah.
that stun is the only way to keep mobs from whacking you over the head. And you're rather squishy as a mini, so if you are soloing and you cannot stun things, then you will be in pain for a while or have to get good at kiting. Also, if you're in a group and you randomly stun things using Piercing Cry, they usually get really cranky. So I'm not entirely sure why this got moved to Melody Stance instead of leaving it in Dissonance, so that if you're in Melody Stance with a group, you're not going to make your group members cranky by accidentally getting a critical hit and stunning the enemy. So I'm a little bit confused about the stun still. Not nearly as perturbed about the corruptions as I was when I first read this. So.
All right, because I know that on Tuesday you're still perturbed about the corruption removal because
I am still perturbed about the corruption removal because I don't want to be close enough to hit them over the head. But if I can stun them, I don't have to remove the corruption because they won't get the corruption. I thought about it.
All right. Now, for the reply on Piercing Cry, while Piercing Cry is a delightful and iconic part of the Minstrel's toolkit, the base effects of this skill were simply overloaded. Keep in mind, this is a skill with a 10-second cooldown, and that cooldown can be reset as frequently as once every 1 to 2 seconds. I have no idea how you do that reset, because I never learned that trick. Oh, you get lucky. Okay, it was one of those lucky things. All right. For skills that a Redline Minstrel will often be using between every other skill, never was I that lucky, it was simply doing too much. It's immediate, so it cancels animations from other skills. It's an interrupt, so it will cancel monster inductions the second they start. It cleansed corruptions, making it nearly impossible for a monster to build up any corruption buffs.
Isn't that the point of cleansing them?
Yes, which is why they got rid of it. And it's stunned for a whopping 5 seconds on criticals, which happen most of the time due to the plus 30% crit chance crit trait.
Yes, which is why it was nice soloing.
Yes. That's all on top of putting out huge damage, interrupting, stunning, clearing corruptions, and being the backbone of a Red Minstrel's DPS rotation is simply too much for a skill you're using that frequently.
Well, maybe split it between 3 skills that you can still use while soloing.
While some of you have expressed great concern over losing this stun in solo landscape environments, you recently gained the ability to stun mobs with an AoE, trading a few points into enduring morale on the red line.
Can we pause for just a second?
Yeah.
Can you reread the part that says trading a few points?
Yeah, it says, so you can stun mobs in an AoE, trading a few points into enduring morale on the red line. Yeah.
Okay, and so what level do you have to be to do this? Because the benefit to Call to Fate as a Redline Minstrel is that at level 7, your Call to Fate has a chance to save your rear by stunning the enemy that's going to wallop you over the head and kill you. Now, you have to wait until you're high enough level to have several points to spend in this one skill that is somewhere on the red line, presumably. This seems like it's going to mean that when you get to high level, you're going to have an AoE stun. You might be saved while you try to stack Call to Orome to save yourself. If you are low level, you are going to have to get really good at kiting or making friends or some other something because you will have absolutely no way to keep an enemy from walloping you over the head and sending you to the red circle. So,
Orme, don't fail me now.
you don't even get called Orme when you're a low-level mini, though. Like, you have to level up quite a bit before you get called Orme. So, I think this is designed for, like, an end-game player who is primarily raiding with their mini, and not for somebody who's rolling a mini for the first time or a new mini. Because these changes do not sound like they're going to make for... I mean, I guess you can craft your way up till you get enough points for this, but that seems rather expensive and ridiculous.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, crafting your way to leveling is something one does as a weird challenge, not something one does.
Well,
as a
you
matter of
might
course.
do it if you don't like getting walloped over the head by giant orcs. I mean,
Sans,
you can't stun them.
You simply kill 15 million boars outside of Breeding.
No, they'll gore you every single time because you can't stun them.
Now, if you really must have the piercing cry stun and corruption removal, they are still there for you in Melody stance. Melody, in general, should have a stronger identity as a stance, which gives you greater group support utility.
Yes. It does sound like it's going to have greater group support utility. That does not help me while I'm soloing, especially not if there's any lag on the server, because changing stances is not fast or easy or smooth.
Call me crazy. But
Besides which, changing stances every other skill isn't going to work.
Alright, yeah.
And no, I don't actually use Call to Fate every other skill. I'm not that lucky either. It's usually every, like, 4th or 5th skill. But I will definitely be missing that stun if this goes live like this, because that is...
Major Ballad Resonance can now target allies rather than healing in an AoE around the caster.
Can or must? That is an important thing.
I have absolutely no idea on that.
Because if it can target allies, that might be nice. If it has to target an ally, that's less useful. Because the AoE is pretty useful.
As for other skills, Cry of the Valor damage increased slightly and no longer buffs your in-combat morale regen. Cry of the Wizard's damages increased slightly. Inspire Fellows no longer grants a minus 1% incoming damage effect, now found on the Anthem of Compassion, and Cry of the Chorus cooldowns increased from 60 seconds to 90 seconds.
And the Cry of the Valor is the only one that, but, I mean,
I figure that's what practice is for, you know?
In combat morale regen buffs are always awesome in my opinion, so.
Yes. Now we have a huge number of trait changes here, which I was not planning to talk about. Are there any trait changes that anyone wants to talk about?
You know what? I don't know too much about that.
Okay, so we'll save that for when it goes live, since I'm sure they're going to change about 5 or 6 times before then.
I hope so, and I hope some of the changes like help solo minstrels, especially at low levels.
As for miscellaneous fixes, the former set bonus, Inspire Fellows damage reduction stacks, now gives a plus 30% chance for Coda of Melody to reset Anthem cooldowns. The former set bonus, Inspire Fellows damage reduction, now gives extra duration to the Song of a lesser damage redirect. Several effects have been changed to minus all skill inductions to minus healing skill inductions. So instead of reducing all skill inductions, only healing ones. Okay. Any idea which ones those were?
No.
Alright. Several traits and effects have had their icons changed to better reflect the skills or effects that they're related to. He's about to have a look at those to see what they are like. References to dissonance cries and calls should now be cries and calls, as these modifiers generally apply to cries and calls regardless of whether or not you're in dissonance stance. And the fear resistance buff from Story of Courage has been reduced in potency and no longer stacks with itself. Oh, and what has been removed from Protector of Song, the trait Shield Focus is no longer available.
Boo.
The corresponding skill Shield Focus has also, of course, been removed. The trait Shielding Cry has been removed. The trait
Boo.
Improved Coda of Melody has been removed. The skill Anthem of the Third Age Melody has its associated traits have been removed. And the trait Improved Call of the Second Age has been removed. As for what now, okay, that's from Protector of Song. Yeah, okay, this because the yellow line
They're
sort of
changing out the yellow line.
a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah, okay. As for Watcher of Resolve, the trait Resolute Block that rating has been removed, and the trait
Boo.
Inspiring Cries and Calls has been removed.
Boo.
And that is, as I said, I did skip over a few in here, but that sort of concludes the section on minstrel changes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they'll make a few tweaks on that in the coming weeks. We will have to find out there. They also made some changes to Monster Play.
Yay!
This update brings the following player baseline stats to 480 equivalent. All classes get plus 25% base health.
Yay!
Reavers get plus 5% base melee damage, as do Defilers.
Woohoo!
And Defilers also get plus 5% base magic damage,
Yes.
since they use that quite a bit. Black Arrows get plus 5% melee and range damage. Now it's pretty
Yay.
much plus 5% to most of them, it sounds like. Oh, War Leaders get plus 10%
War leaders need it.
base melee damage. And Stalkers get plus 5% base melee damage and plus 15% to base tactical damage.
Yes.
So the tactical damage, is that from howls or something like that?
Yeah. Mostly.
And Weavers get plus 5% base melee damage. Then they have a bunch of class-specific changes in here. Anyone check these out enough to have any ones they want me to actually talk about?
Nope, not yet.
All right.
I read through them, but I haven't tested any of them.
All right. So we'll save that for when the update arrives. And also some general monster play changes. General Orc change. Undying Rage cooldown is now 8 minutes and requires the Orc to be under 50% health. When activation applies a corruption effect that makes the Orc immune to death, increased damages, reduces incoming damage on an expiration, deals 50% of the Orc's max morale as damage. Additionally, using skills while under the effect of Undying Rage will heal the Orc for 2% of their max morale. If the corruption is removed before the effect expires, the Orc does not suffer the damage and has the cooldown for Undying Rage reduced by 360 seconds. Outpost changes. For each outpost that monster players control, they receive a 20% bonus to Glory, Infamy, and combinations earned, and 44,900 finesse.
Yay!
For each outpost that the free players control, they receive 20% bonus to Glory, Infamy. There are no bonuses for controlling these locations. Tower changes. For each tower or camp locale that monster players and free players control, they receive a 25% bonus to glory, infamy, and combination earns. There are no other bonuses that apply for controlling these locales. Tol Escarnin. Controlling Tol Escarnin grants the controlling faction a 50% bonus to glory, infamy, and combinations earnings. There are no other bonuses applied to controlling Tol Escarnin. Artifact changes. When monster players control their artifact, they receive a plus 5% to all defenses, plus 5% to all damage, and plus 50% increase to glory, infamy, and combination earns. Increased finesse by 180,000.
Yay!
And a 2% reduction in the power cost. When free peoples control their artifact, they receive plus 2% on all defenses, plus 50% increase to glory, infamy, and combinations earned, and a 2% reduction in power costs. We've updated the appearance of the new spider appearance available in the LOTRO store. The appearance is now of the Gamnagle spider appearance.
Sans, when are you getting it?
Maybe never. I haven't looked it up to find out because I didn't really want to see.
And the White Hand Warg skin in the Entmoors was errantly changed. We have put the correct skin back onto the trait. Maps to Gramfoot now have a 60-second cooldown.
Yay!
This is to alleviate an issue with the map being removed from the initial quest deed. And Tinctures of Audacity have been removed from the game as they were artificially inflating the cost of Audacity while active on monster players. If you use one of them and then attempt to train the Audacity trait line, are paying a cost 5 levels higher. So they
Ouch.
were causing you to pay too much because of them, so they decided to remove them. All right. And as for miscellaneous things, Blood Kraban and formal Corgi pets now appear in the collections panel. All right. They corrected a grammatical error in the German title Bane of the Nine. Added new cosmetic items for barter for the 2022 Fall Festival. All right, so that means that they expect. That implies that they're expecting the expansion to come out after the Fall Festival starts. Because this is saying that they've added the 2022 Fall Festival stuff to
Or
this
as it
update.
starts. Yeah.
Yeah, or as it starts. In other words, that it would be probably too close to. It could be that they were expecting it to come out at the same time, but they didn't want to chance a slippage causing them not being able to get the Fall Festival stuff out. That's also a possibility. IAXP runes no longer drop from Woe of the Willow T1 chest. When using Scholar Crafting Magnifying Glass and book props on Hobbit mails now appears correctly.
That's probably good.
The quest intro Strider's Charge now gives a robe as a light armor reward option.
Cool.
I think you saw us.
Okay. I guess that would be nice for anyone playing a Lore Master. And I was about to say I'm about to take a Lore Master through there, but actually no, I will probably have a Lore Master go through there before then. Because I think I have one of the Lore Masters I have, at least one of them is going to be made before the expansion. There's another one that's guaranteed to be after the expansion. Having discovered an error in the legendary item XP required for the legendary item rewards track across various levels, we have made adjustments to the curve. These changes will speed up progress through the legendary items rewards track for characters on most levels. For 45 to 60 and 95 to 120, the legendary item XP required to advance the track has been reduced. For 61 to 94, the legendary item XP to advance the track has been greatly reduced. For levels 121 to 130, the legendary item XP required to advance the track has been slightly reduced. For now, levels 131 to 140, the legendary item XP required for advance the track remains exactly the same. However, we plan to make adjustments in future seasons, likely requiring slightly more legendary item experience in the 131 and higher range.
Eh.
Yeah.
I feel like this is all just making my legendary items so much more complicated. They're now kind of like, I finally figured it out. They're now kind of like a pencil box that you get in kindergarten and you really love. And then, like, every new school year, it breaks and it drops all your pencils on the floor. And you've got to go get new ones because they'll break. And then you've got to, like, patch it back together. And you're like, okay, it's going to last this next year. And then it does the same thing. But you're still stuck with the same pencil box.
You're stuck with the same pencil box?
Then you're, like, in college and you're still carrying around the same pencil box. And every year it still breaks.
Why are you still carrying the old pencil box in college?
Because you're a nerd.
Because they stopped giving us a new one every 5 levels, and instead they're like, hey, now everything on yours is irrelevant. Do something new. And you have to, like, completely rebuild the stinking thing every year. Or however often they decide to update things.
I'm just wondering.
They said it grew with you, but I don't think so. I think they have a different definition.
They have a different definition.
They're like,
it grows with you and then it dies.
It, like, becomes attached to you and you can't get rid of it, but, like, you have to spend tons of gold on it every so often and, like, all this new currency that we gave you and completely redo it.
Car.
Like, I don't know. I like lower levels better. You can just get a whole new weapon.
Oh, well. I guess there is that.
And it doesn't cost you 10 gold to reforge it.
We also have a note from Orion who says, they're back in with Orion on September 9th, 2022, noon Eastern Standard Time. That would be server time, where he is going to have a little talk with the world. They wanted to give people a heads up that they will be doing another stream on 9/9 to discuss upcoming changes to the game and answering questions posted here and on the chat when live. The topic will definitely be discussed are delvings, a new way to enjoy mission systems coming with Before the Shadow, monster play changes, last changes, I would presume that includes the minstrel changes they're talking about, potential discussion points, and throw some ideas onto the thread, and he'll see if he will be able to answer them. This will be an AMA style discussion, or he hopes so. So this will be at the old time for the lunch stream that Cordovan used to do, which we hope comes back someday. But we do use this occasionally for things like the there and back again sessions that we have here. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask him, feel free to respond to the thread and perhaps we may get the question answered. Like, Sans is going to ask, why are you ruining Redline Minstrels?
Solo Redline Minstrels, particularly at low levels.
Yeah, okay, solo Redline Minstrels at low levels, yes. Yeah, there is that. All right.
Maybe our DPS will just be improved, so we'll just kill things anyway. I don't know. They might have a plan.
Well, I suppose if you have time to go into Bulber, we could check that out when Build 2 comes out. Now, the question is when Build 2 will come out, because it's unlikely it'll open on Tuesday because Monday's a holiday at Standing Stone Games.
True.
So I doubt that they'll be able to have anything ready by Tuesday. Maybe they'll have something on Wednesday and give us a Wednesday through Friday session with Bull Roarer for if we have a round 2 for this week. because I suspect that they don't want to go too long before that because I'm guessing they want to have this update out by the end of the month because they want to have it out by the end of the month because in late September is when they are planning to have the first round of the expansion on Bulwer. So let's then head out into our store sales. Sans Window, what's on sale this week?
This week, double bonus points is back. Now through September 11th, you can get twice the bonus points in the LOTRO store. You can also stand out from the crowd, get 20% off select shared wardrobe, select cosmetic outfit slots, mounted combat trait spec and cosmetic slots, select cosmetics, all the way through September 8th. And you can get a free tome of tracking. You might want to get it on a non-hunter. Using the code TRACKCREATURE, now through September 8th.
Right way to get it with a non-hunter. Yeah, that might be a good idea. And with that, let's head into our week in gaming. Krister, what were you up to?
Well, we continue to bash our heads against Boss 2 on Hidden Horde. Last night, it was really nice as we had a couple of our couple more old timers come back and getting very close to almost having a full kin raid film, which would be really cool. But what's been really consistently cool about us raiding is that when we've been short, the only thing we've really been short of is DPS. So we usually have all of our specialist roles filled, which is great because DPS is easy to recruit. And so, Boss 1, we had I would just call it a mulligan at the beginning. But then the second attempt, we got Boss 1 down. It was pretty smooth to Boss 2. And it's gotten down to a matter of fine-tuning mechanics. So our problems are now that we've got to make sure that particular mobs are dead at the beginning. We've been adjusting the kill order a little bit. And our big thing seems to be corruption removals. So we've got to get our corruption removals down. Other than that, it seems to just be we were really close. And last night we really thought we had it because we had an excessive amount of DPS. But the boss, that was our fastest time on Boss 1 so far. So next week, going to try it again. We're feeling pretty good about it. It's really been nice to have Boss 1 almost become routine now, where we feel confident that we can achieve victory now, and our tactics are sound with them. But it's Boss 2 that's given. What kills us is the people that have done Hidden Horde all the way through. There's no pet talks. It's basically like, okay, well, then, once we get done Boss 2, it's like, oh, and then you guys are really in for a treat because now it's Boss 3, and so there's no joy at this victory. But it's been fun to see everybody kind of settling down into their roles and really seeing the group come together cohesively. So that's my favorite part. And then in non-LOTRO, I played my Exploding Orc a little bit, and I've been having fun. He seems to be the only person that shows up to love events in tanking mode, so I could feel really self-important when I take the aggro of the boss and tank it while everybody else is attacking it, and that's been a lot of fun. So I've been having fun at the volcanic vents. And then in Arc, Sans, I reloaded all of my plugins. I crafted with the stupid flying rafts. You have to craft this stuff, so I waited about an hour to get all that materials together, and I crafted it, and I still couldn't build on it. So I'm very frustrated at this point, just because it was a total waste of time redoing it. But that doesn't matter because I'm still having fun in the Arc world that you guys have put in as well. So I can always fall back to that. And then I have been in Creative Tsunami. I get very, certain times of the year, I get really creative, and so I've been pumping out a lot of artwork, some of which one thing which I just shared with you guys tonight. So that's been my week, just creativity and gaming. Sans, how about you?
Well, I played a minstrel on Bulwer this week. and use the Isengard Tavern to level up and get my war steed at level 5 and ride around Kellendam before going back to the Isengard to get stuff. And then ran some missions with Pineleaf. Well, I guess we both ran missions at the same time and talked. On Bullroar at level 20, and that was pretty fun. And that's when I discovered that I missed the stun more than the corruption removal. And then I made a new mini on Shadowfax to kind of compare, and it was kind of painful starting. But as soon as that stun starts proccing at about level 7 every so often, it gets a lot better. But it's not nearly as fast to level up as it is at the Isengard Tavern. So my mini is still only like level 10 or 11. Still working on that one. And then we tamed some Fjord Hawks in Ark this week. Krister, Cinders, and I. And they really do teleport your stuff with you when you teleport, which is pretty awesome. So, I'm excited to have a new shoulder pet that's pretty cool and will help carry all my stuff. And then I kind of just wanted something low-key to do, so I opened up Stardew Valley again this week and actually made it all the way to fall for the first time ever. So that was kind of cool. How was your week, Pineleaf?
All right. Looks like I've got LOTRO here. Let's see. I concluded my Brawler series that I've been running for quite a while with a test to see how well that my capped Brawler could handle soloing a small fellowship skirmish. And the result is I just barely made through. I was reaching Necromancer's Gate. I did try to see how it would be at full fellowship, and that was just, let us just say the results were not pretty. But I was able to get through it at small fellowship, just barely got through the entire thing. And it's interesting how much tougher it is on the skirmish curve now as opposed to back when we were at 105. Where at 105 I had a warden that completed the raid version of the skirmish solo. So it's interesting that I can't even get to the full at 140. I can't even get to the full fellowship version. I had to go down all the way down to the small fellowship version in order to be able to have any hope of being able to get through it solo. But anyway, I tried that to sort of like a finale, some irresponsible skirmishing in order to test how far the brawler can operate. And then during the field trip, it was only Sam and I, so we decided to head over to Laurelin, where we had two characters that were reasonably close to the same level. I think he was around 121 and I was 115. And as we were starting on there, I noticed that I didn't have the new legendary items. I still had the old legendary items. Fortunately, before I did anything on that, I remembered why I still had the old legendary items. And that was because I wanted to get to 116, because if I identified everything right away, it would have been 105 legendary items. And I thought, maybe better to start with the 116 items instead. So I did get to 116, and I was able to then to get my legendary items that so my new legendary items on there, and started leveling those up a little bit. I did save a couple of my old legendary items for converting into script for when I hit 121, since that's the next uptick on the legendary items one. So I'm getting pretty close to there because I was running a few skirmishes in addition to the ones that I ran with Sam, and I also ran some missions today And I'm getting pretty close to that 120 mark on there, so we should be the same level if we are going against if we're playing with each other on next Friday Night Fight. I mean field trip. Yes. And speaking of Friday Night Fights, though, we had 6 140s, so we ran the stairs, and then we also ran a few full fellowship skirmishes. We ran Thievery Mischief, the Prancing Pony, Storm on Methodress, and I'm trying to think if there were any others. So there might have been one more in there, but those are the 3 that I remember. And that's it for what I did in LOTRO this week. We currently have 15 supporters on Patreon, and if you'd like to join this illustrious rate of players and help support LOTRO players, you can go to the donations page to support the Players Alliance on Patreon. Your money will be used for our podcast hosting, website hosting, and to pay for our live shows. If you'd like to send an email, you can send it to podcast@loachplayers.com. You can also follow us at Twitter, the Players Alliance at Players Ally, Loach Players at Loach Players, Arendis at Arendis, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, Senswinda at Senswinda, Terry Adwin at Terry Adwin, Guarendis at Guarendis, Calabathian at Calabathian, and Krister at Entropy Engine 1. The Players Alliance has 2 shows on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have Loach Players News, and we record DDO Players News when Drac is available. You can join us for our shows at loachplayers.com/live. And that's all for tonight, and this is Pine of Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.